Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs: basketball, MLB, NHL, hockey, right to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games that you can play right from your home. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to get into the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And joining us on the Carne Asada is a Dodgers legend, a six-time All-Star, 1981 World Series co-MVP. You guys know, anybody who's been a Dodger fan for as long as we have, you guys know him, and we're very thankful that he's joining us on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Cey. Ron, ¿cómo estás, amigo? Bienvenido.
Thank you very much for having me, Juan. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing fantastic. First of all, Ron, I want to start off with this. You have a podcast, and I like the title of it, though. We'll see about that, the Ron Cey Show. I'm very curious. Did you, once you stopped playing, did you ever see yourself having a career in the media? Did you think, I have the skill set, I could pull that off?
No, didn't really enter my mind. I was really more concerned of, where it would go, the road that would wind to. Here I am at 75 now, and I decided to start up a podcast. And I know it's a little late for doing that, but there's a lot of things that I decided to do later on in life. I've got a book coming out in June. Entitled Penguin Power, that I had been asked about for years and years and years, and I just felt that and this is before all the media, social media. We had landlines, we had maybe 5 channels growing up on our television. We had radios. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the computer. We didn't have any of these things that are just now handed to you in today's life. So I really wasn't too interested in doing any of that, because I felt everybody already knew too much about me. But over the course of time, and the work that I used to do for the Dodgers, opened up my ideas about how I might approach what would happen afterwards, and finally had a person who kept after me about possibly writing a book and getting a little bit more involved and staying a little bit more in tune with social media. And I realized that if I was going to do both, I would have to do those things. So that's it was kind of the invitation about getting involved in a little bit more social media.
I want to ask you about the book, but I one more thing on the podcast. You have such an eclectic guest list. I mean, the guests that you have on there, it's your typical baseball people that are affiliated with the Dodgers, but then you have some other guests, and I'm curious, like your first guest was Jaime Jarrín. Right. And then you had a guest like Richard Montoya, which was, to me, totally out of left field. I never would have expected you to have Richard Montoya on the show. How do you come up with who you want to have on the show, and why was Jarrín your first guest?
Well, Jaime was basically there because I wanted to open up with something that was baseball related, and with Richard has a history of knowing what goes on in this city for a long time, and the actual happenings that took place in Chavez Ravine back when the Dodgers were trying to move here back in the late 50s. So yes, I'm pleased that you called it eclectic, because that's what we refer to it as. And I do want a broader range of people. I want men, I want women, I want Black people, I want Hispanic people. I want a broad section of people. We had Ann Myers Drysdale on, who was a terrific interview, and I'm looking at Billie Jean King, and she's busy for the month of May, but I was hoping to get her for June. And Lisa Fernandez, who was the terrific softball player and still a coach at UCLA for women's softball. I want to integrate all of those things. I want to have a real broad base of people that we're doing. So I've had broadcasters, and I've had comedians, and I've had baseball people. And next week I have Michael Young, who played for the Denver Broncos, pro football career. He went to UCLA, was a football, basketball, baseball star. And he was also our CRO at the Los Angeles Dodgers and has a lot of success, putting together sports franchises. So I wanted to talk to him about the financial side of things. And so I really do want to have a broad base. I don't want to be pinpointed and pigeon-toed into, just having, men or this or that. And it gets kind of stale and dull after that.
So Penguin Power, we're going to be able to, can we order that book now?
Yes,
is it going to be available everywhere?
You can go to Amazon, and it's available to pre-order. The book is going to be launched June 13th. And then I believe Triumph Books is going to start a book tour, book signing. And I'm also going to do some with some of the things that I'm lined up to take some books with me to get this thing kind of started. And I was actually going to launch, I think, possibly a media thing with the book maybe once a week until it finally does its launch. So yeah, I'm planning. I'm in a brand new area. Podcasting and doing a book, brave new world for me. I'm a lot of it is I'm coaching myself. I'm learning from it. I make mistakes. I'm glad to hear the criticism, whatever it is. I will take responsibility for all that, but it's a little bit different than I thought it'd be. So it's been very challenging.
There you go, Alicia. I mean, this man, he's going to be the king of media pretty soon. He mentioned social media. I mean, you have expertise in social media. You got any pointers for him?
No. Okay, first of all, my co-host one is correct. I was thinking the exact same thing. Media empire. That's what you're building here, Ron. That's congratulations and so inspiring. And I cannot wait to get my hands on your book. When I found out that you agreed to do our show, super excited, so many questions, but you jumped right into something that I'm very curious about. You are part of this dream team, right? The infield of the 80s, the Dodgers, 1981 specifically, Mr. MVP. You talk about social media, and I feel like maybe I know I was forced to do a podcast. Now I love the podcast. It sounds like you really gravitated toward it. What would you think about you all back in the 80s? You, Steve Garvey, Bill Russell, Dave Lopes, having to deal with Twitter, having to have cameras inside your clubhouse, having to watch where you ate, how much you tip, all of that stuff. With that, would you be okay with that? You think the guys would be okay with it back then?
No, the clubhouse is off limits. You don't bring a camera into the clubhouse. This is the player sanctuary. This is where things. It's like what they say in Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And it's kind of the same thing in the clubhouse. This is our place to talk things over and to hash things out and do whatever. And it's between us. As far as establishing a media empire, I'm too old to start a media empire.
What? No way.
I'm 75 here, and I don't know how much longer this lasts. So this has to be more of a temporary thing. But I certainly do enjoy it. I'm on the other side of the mic this time. I have to be creative. I have to try. And I'm learning a lot, but I still think I'm a long ways away from where I want to be. And that comes through, practice. And we're only doing one show a week right now. We've only been out there for 5 months, so there's a lot to be done. As far as the infield is concerned, we had the longest running and most successful infield in Major League history. And we were in the moment. And I don't think we really appreciated, what we were eventually going to accomplish. But nobody else has even come close to what we did. They didn't even get halfway there in terms of years. So the idea of me saying that this is the most successful infield in history is true by fact. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was the greatest infield of all time, because there could have been an infield that was put together for a year or two that accomplished a great deal, but that was the end of that run. But technically, by fact, we are the most successful infield in Major League history, and we're all homegrown. We all played with each other in the minor leagues and an instructional league, so we were well honed by the time we got there, and then that translated into, you know, four World Series, World Championship, and a 3 million attendance that we took for the first time at Dodger Stadium in Major League history. And we are the most viewed team on the field in Major League history, Los Angeles Dodgers.
Alicia, you're on mute. Alicia, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Trying to keep the feedback. Okay. Again, Juan, what an era, right? These four gentlemen, this infield, epic. And I think you guys, you gentlemen, you all-stars of all-stars have an anniversary coming up, correct?
Yes, we do. It's June 23rd. It will be the golden anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the longest running and most successful and the infield major history. And I was the one who, by working there, decided that the longest running infield in Major League history wasn't good enough anymore. And let's take it the next step. We are, in fact, most successful. So I added it, and it caught on a little bit. And I just felt that it was deserving, because this is one of those once in a lifetime things that you have. Because of the structure of the game and the money involved and all the other things that happen, having four guys together for 8.5 years is impossible. And there's anything that can go wrong. You know, it could be an injury, it could be an individual's poor play, it could be the team wanting to trade one of these guys to get more in return. All kind of free agency, arbitration, you name it. And we somehow defied all of that and lasted 8.5 years.
But again, Juan, this would be the modern baseball viewer. I don't think they understand.
No, they don't.
Exist anymore. I mean, you guys together and that successful has never been duplicated. And I believe the statistics, it's not even close what you four did for the infield, for the Dodgers. So let me tell you, congratulations ahead of time on your anniversary. It's in September. Is that what you said?
No, I said it's June 23rd. And yeah, and I can tell you that during that tenure that we had, we pretty much destroyed the Los Angeles Dodgers minor league baseball system. There wasn't an infielder in our program that made the major leagues on our club. They had to go elsewhere to make it happen, and there were numerous players. But can you imagine, you know, saying, well, if you're looking at it from just a yes and no standpoint, you say, well, the Dodgers didn't produce a major leaguer on their own team in the infield for over 10 years. That doesn't sound too good, does it? But in return, you had a group of guys that played in 4 World Series and were world champions and were all-star caliber players multiple times. So, yeah, it was very special. I think we appreciate it probably now more than we ever did. And having the 50th anniversary, which in this moment is not being honored, it's a special accomplishment for all of us.
Did we hear that right? The Dodgers are not honoring this anniversary?
Look, I've just looked at I've looked at the promotional schedule. I don't see anything like that listed. And Ron, I just want to tell you this real quick, because I thought when we were talking after the Koufax statue went up, we had a conversation on this show, like what could be the next statue. And I said, well, if they're going to go by eras, to me, the next statue, there'd be a good argument to say it would be the infield. All 4 of you guys would have a statue, and you just laid out the entire argument about why it's important to recognize your guys' accomplishment, because I think it's hilarious, but you're spot on. You did single-handedly destroy the minor league system. I thought that was beautiful the way you laid that out. That's one way of looking at it, I guess, Ron. But yes, Alicia, if you look at the promotional schedule for the Dodgers this year, I don't see anything saying they're going to. Now, this may change, and if it does change, maybe we need to be a little louder about this, because after all, we're going to take credit. We got Fernando's jersey retired, which is going to happen on Thursday in August. But Manny Mota is being recognized this weekend for the Legends of Major League Baseball. So I think this is a huge oversight on the Dodgers side. And this is something that, we had one of your former teammates on the show, Ron, Joe Ferguson, was on the show, and Joe Ferguson had told us that, for a long time after he stopped playing, he wanted nothing to do with baseball. He stepped away from it, and now he's trying to reconnect, with the Dodgers organization. And the Dodgers, they shove it down the fans' face about, we're all about what would you call it? The camaraderie, the fraternity, the fraternity of Dodger players. But for them to not have anything to celebrate the accomplishment that you guys did, I think is a huge oversight, and that has to suck, Ron. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Yes.
Not very good. But I can tell you, excuse me, that we have a cubicle in Cooperstown of the infield in the Hall of Fame Museum, and we don't have one of those at Dodger Stadium. And I think that the fact that we don't have one of those at Dodger Stadium, listen, this is one of the gems of Dodger history and tradition in their cap. And for this, I can't answer the question. Maybe they can answer it better as to why it isn't. Maybe something will change between now and then. But I just feel like the Dodger fan base, the real core Dodger fans, are missing an opportunity to have a big celebration night there on one of the truly great accomplishments in Major League Baseball, to have something of one of a kind that has happened like this. And it's I think I'm fairly sure that I can speak for all the infielders on that we're highly disappointed with that.
Alicia, I think we just found our new cause. I think we know what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the season. Try to get a night, something. They need to, as I said, I thought the statue of the four of them would come next. Ron, would a statue of the four, what would that mean to you guys to have a statue at Dodger Stadium?
Obviously, it would be one of those pinnacles of success that we would have. But I don't expect them to do that. I'm not sure what I expect them to do. We have something that I think that was the basic foundation for our success for a 10-year period, and the results are there. And I don't know if there's a more important Dodger event happening on the 23rd of June that would supplant us. But, it's rather odd to me that at this point in time that this is. I've said my piece at that.
All right, Alicia, you got anything else for Ron?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that with us. I had no idea, and we are definitely going to look into this and ask why not. This is huge. I mean, this is why there are 3-4 generations, including my daughter, of Dodger fans, and it started with you four gentlemen. This is legacy, and I'm always here on this podcast, the Bleed Lows podcast. I'm continuously talking about how special Dodger Stadium is, how it's our cathedral of baseball, West Coast. I can't imagine, maybe was it an oversight? One more question and I'll let this go. Did any of your team reach out to the Dodgers? Was the question asked, or?
I don't think we need to do that. It's on the calendar. All you have to do is look it up. And Like I said, it deserves attention. I think Dodger fans would be excited about having a night like that. This was very special. And we had a really terrific relationship with our fan base back then. If you probably don't remember it, but we had Sunday Autograph Day, and everybody would go to an assigned position in the stadium except the starting pitcher, and be available for half an hour at signings with security. And it was a mob scene, but it was also a lot of fun. And we treated them to 4 World Series and a World Championship, and all the great players that went along with it. And they treated us to the first 3 million attendance in Major League history. And they do live in our house. And we were the ones who built it. And we had a lot of foundation laid in front of us by the players who came and did their thing from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, and the transition. And the 60s were also a very special time. We had 3 World Series in the 60s, led by Koufax and Drysdale and Tommy Davis and many others. And Dodger baseball is a very special time to people. I know that with our influence, we have generations of Dodger fans who are still Dodger fans, who passed their Dodger experiences down to their family, and then their family passed it down to their kids. So we do have a direct influence on today's success with the Dodgers. And I just feel like, you know what, let's have a party. But right now, it looks like we're going to have a different kind of a party.
Let's have a party, absolutely. And Juan, we just got a note from producer Babyface. So Ron, that date specifically, June 23rd, the epic anniversary of your infield, it's a fireworks night, and it is against the Houston Astros. Yes.
Yeah, and guess who's the manager of the Houston Astros? Dusty Baker, one of our guys who was on the 81 team that was part of the first 30 home run foursome that we did in 1977, along with Reggie Smith, Steve Garvey, and myself. Another reason to celebrate.
Well, this just seems so easy, Alicia. I mean, look, we're going to take up this guy. I don't want to end we have limited time with Ron, so I don't want to end it on this note, but we are going to work on it. It's super simple. It's completely laid out. Houston Astros fireworks night. We bring in the infield. We have a celebration. We recognize it's the 50th anniversary. We don't have to overthink these things. These things, we don't have to make them harder than what they are. But
well, I can tell you that Jack DeLance, who actually was part of why I'm on the podcast, who does things with me and for me, we have he has been in charge of speaking with them, and it is essentially, the correspondence back hasn't been much. And how do you plan an event that's happening in a month and a half from now, essentially, and do the right thing? So yeah, it's been disappointing.
Well, we're going to get the word out on this, Ron. Look, we have to right a wrong here.
I want to throw this in front of you before we get.
Wow! Look at that.
There's my copy of the book. I doubt it's here or not, but here it is.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like.
It's perfect right there. Right there is perfect.
Coming out in mid-June. You can pre-order on Amazon. It's available there. And I'm looking forward to it. It took me a long time to get this under control. My wife wanted to do a book on the infield, and right after we finished our careers, so it's kind of fresh. And we all just, I don't think we were ready for that at the time. We were still kind of, the funny thing about it is we weren't savoring the moment. We were just in the moment. We were trying to win world titles. We were trying to play the best baseball we could. Yeah, it was fine. It was great, wonderful. We have a major league record, but it wasn't like we wore it around. And it wasn't until a long time afterward until, other people started reminding us that, the second longest running infield in Major League history is right around 4 years. And in anything that you do, when you double it, and then there is no comparison. There's absolutely, this is so unique that there's no room for discussion about whether actually or not it is the greatest, the most successful infield of all time. So yeah, it's pretty much clear. It's very clear to me.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Absolutely no brainer. All right, so we're going to end the show the way we always end the show, Ron. We have on this show, we're all about the Dodgers, we're about Los Angeles, and we're about the culture, right? So we have a series of questions here that we like to call our kickback questions. They're rapid fire questions. If you want to elaborate on your answer, by all means, go ahead and do it. But they're meant to be quick. So you mentioned the infield, and you guys didn't appreciate it. I have to ask you.
No, not. We just didn't start living in that moment. We had other business to do. We put it aside for a later celebration.
So when you guys run into each other now, or you run into former major leaguers, like let's say you run into Goose Gossage, is it still rough for you, or you've passed enough time has passed that you guys can just be, because I have no clue how you survived that. For you young kids who are watching, this was a man who did not wear flaps on his helmet. Yeah. And he took at least probably 100-mile-per-hour fastball off your head?
Neighborhood. Wow. Ballpark figure. But I was lucky to survive. I was literally about quarter of an inch away from this not being in a very good place. It wasn't in a very good place anyway, but it would have gotten worse. Under today's protocol, I would have had to sit out the rest of the World Series. And I will tell you, point of fact, that would have hurt a lot worse than getting hit by Goose Gossage. Not to be able to finish that World Series and come away with icing on the cake, being an MVP, the epitome of the moment. It was just all very special to us. It was the last game that the fabled infield played together. Davey Lopes was the one who left, and the rest of us played one more year with Steve Sax. And but Davey, that was and actually Game 6 of the 1981 World Series. First four hitters in the lineup were Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, Steve Garvey, and myself. So the infielders dominated the front of the lineup, and there's so many appropriate things that took place with that happening that it was a culmination of things, and so it's very, 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 very special to all of us.
So what was more special, because that you bounced back from the Goose and winning the MVP, or because it was all those years that you guys had gotten there, 74, then 77 and 78, and then to finally get over the top in 81 and finally beat the Yankees? What was more satisfying?
Well, I mean, you do have to add in all those things. It's a combination of a lot of them. And, for our infield to be knocking on the door and be turned away by a ruling that wasn't made, an interference call in 78, that broke our hearts. That's the worst loss I've ever had in my life, period. Anything else is not even comparable. To lose that on a play like that, that it wasn't in the moment that we lost the series, but it changed the tide of everything. It's like a momentum switch. It gave them life, and it took the life vein right from us. And 81, we knew that our calling was coming to an end. That they had plans. They had a nucleus of young players that they wanted to implement into the system, just like they did for us 10 years prior. And although they did not accomplish what we did, but they had a really good nucleus of players coming in. And so we knew that this might be our last go round, and it was, it turned out, but it made it very simple for them after that, because we accomplished the goal, we got it done, and then they could make their changes with a little bit less reluctance.
All right, last two, Ron. We are big wrestling fans on this show, so we need to know if at any point in your life you were a fan of the male soap opera, or did you poo-poo it and were above wrestling and just never caught your attention?
Oh no, he got my attention. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Andre the Giant. I mean, he was huge back in Hulk Hogan, Rowdy Ronnie Piper, Rowdy Roddy
There
Piper.
you
Is
go.
that it?
There you go. Yeah, the second
Something
one.
like that, right? And
Yeah,
and of course there's Goldberg. Goldberg was big for a while, if you remember. He was,
yeah.
but it's nothing more today than what the NBA All-Star game is, what the NFL football game is. It's just a form of entertainment. And they're going to entertain you to the hilt. They're going to bring in the girls with the flimsy outfits, and they're going to trash talk, and they're going to do everything they want to, and they get a big crowd for all of that, and it's all great. I mean, if you look at the martial arts fighting and everything else, who strolls in between innings, or between between rounds, is a skimpy clad young lady. And so no, look, it all sells, I guess. If that's what you want it to be, and don't tell us about the competition, the level of it being important. It's not any more important. We used to actually pride ourselves in wanting to win those all-star games. We wanted to prove which league was better, and which players were better. Today it's just a show. They're heaving up half-court shots and doing crazy alley-oop dunks, and there's no defense. And now you saw the NFL, they go to flag football. Wonderful, wonderful 50-yard flag football game. Yeah, that's something I'm interested in watching.
Did that ever cross your guys' mind while you guys were playing? Was it ever like, hey, we're here to entertain people? Or was it just really, we're here to win and that's all we care about?
Well, we understand that, and we did understand that we are entertainment. I mean, we have people working in everyday lives, who need an escape, so need some entertainment, need some spice in their life, and we're an escape. I mean, people get excited about, oh my God, I get to go home and watch the Dodger game after this. I get to watch my favorite guys, and we were household names back then. How couldn't it be after playing together for 8.5 years? Today, with the way things are and metrics taking over, there were years prior to maybe 4 or 5 years ago where people would ask me at the stadium, who's playing second base? I don't know. Who's playing left field? I don't know. Who's playing right field? I don't know. Who's the starting pitcher? Well, they're having a bullpen night, right? And bullpen night to me is nothing more than a glamorized exhibition game. I mean, this is a real game, guys. I mean, you can't call up a guy or have a spot starter in there. I mean, isn't it a little bit more real than just, we're having a bullpen game? I mean, is that where it's gone? And look at all the rule changes. You got a bigger base, you got a clock on the game now, pitch thing, and the games are shorter. It must be working in that regard. But I imagine it's probably pretty tough for Dodger fans, because they get to an hour late because of parking, and if it's going to be a 2-hour and 15-minute game, they barely have a chance to sit down and get a bite to eat before they're thinking about going home. So I don't know. It's right. I mean, people at Dodger Stadium leave early, right?
No,
They do. They leave early. So
Traffic runs our lives for sure.
I would love to go into all of that, what your thoughts are on the rule changes. Maybe once your book comes out, we can have you back on the show and we can promote the book and then get into those rules. But the last one here, because you've been so gracious with your time, we want to know, since you played a big chunk of your career here in Los Angeles, what is your favorite taco, and where did you go in the city to get that taco, or where do you go now to get that taco?
There was a I think it was called the Burrito King. Remember the Burrito? I don't know if you remember the Burrito King. It was like off of Figueroa and Sunset at the corner.
Oh, I never partook in that one. That sounds really good.
It used to be a hangout. I believe it was called that. But I know that lots of people used to stop off there. when we didn't have all the food that they do have there in the past. It was better to go to the Burrito King, I think, and get your stuff and take it to Dodger Stadium. But yeah, that would probably be the number one place. But I'm not even sure if it's there anymore. I swear to God.
So, are you more of a burrito guy than over tacos?
Burrito, yeah, I'm a burrito guy. Tacos, I'm okay with tacos, but I like burritos.
And what I love about Ron is he just said a 100% truth, and it is much better to bring your own food into the stadium. There were many times where I brought my own food and sat up in the top deck to watch Dodger games. So thank you for revealing that truth, Ron. We really appreciate that.
Well, now we've got just about every amenity there, I believe, or I should say they have every amenity. There's the place that now you can go behind the pavilions. There's a walkway. They have all of that stuff. There's a park out there now, which is really kind of nice for the fans. And it's opened up. There's a lot of really nice things that are going on there, and it's done for entertainment and pleasure, and kids are having a good time with it. And that's the whole thing. Get them in the ballpark, make them have a good time, let them have a good time, and it'll keep bringing them back. And of course, the most important product of all is the product on the field, and you got to win to make that happen.
Absolutely. So we want to thank Ron Cey for coming on the show. So just remember, folks, he's got a great podcast. It's called We'll See About That, The Ron Cey Show, and you can find it wherever you find your favorite podcast. We got Penguin Power coming out in June, so that's the book that you guys need to add to your book list. Ron, are you on any social media? Can our listeners, our viewers, can they follow you on any of those socials?
I'm not on Twitter. I think there's a possibility of us being on Twitter because of the podcast, but that's come a little bit later. Facebook, I want no part of. Instagram, we have to do Instagram, and so we're keeping it pretty low key with that. We do a little teaser, I think. On Fridays for our podcast live show on Saturday. And last week was Reggie Smith. And Reggie has a lot of, he's probably one of the more knowledgeable guys about hitting through the eras of progress from our time where we didn't watch video. It was more about feel to video. And now the introduction of metrics. And he's also putting a book together on that. So very interesting to talk to him about how they hit today, because it is completely different from our perspective, and worthwhile to listen in on how it's changed. So it's a fun topic because baseball you can talk about forever. Your opinions are always invited, and it's just conversation. We're not trying to convince you of anything. It's just, this is the kind of the way that we'll set you in an area where these are the kind of the way that things are today, as opposed to what they used to be like.
Can I ask a question? Just
of course.
Before we thank you once again. I was so looking forward to today. Had such a good time. Learned so much in the little amount of time. I'm definitely going to be subscribing and following and liking your podcast. Thank you, Ron Cey. One question. As the Dodgers, as the team stands today, do you think they can and will win the World Series this year?
I don't think they're going to win their division.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to win their division. I think they have, quite honestly, like I said, I've been away from it for a while now. Last year was my last year working for them. What I see is a lot of vacated holes. You lost Turner and you lost the other Turner, and you had a second baseman who last year is not playing this year. He was designated to be the shortstop. So besides Freeman and Mookie Betts and Will Smith, you pretty much have metrics to decide what the rest of the lineup is, and it's an unproven lineup. And the pitching, you just got Gonsolin back, I believe. And May is having some rough spots. Urias has gotten banged up a bit. They're playing 500 baseball. They've got the Cardinals in town, and the Cardinals are playing horribly at this point in time. And I feel like San Diego is the team to beat in the division. Sorry, Dodger fans. I'm just shooting from the hip here, telling you how I see it. I think the Atlanta Braves are the class of the National League. I think the New York Mets, when they lost Diaz, that kind of closed a door, because I really felt like with him there, with all the moves that they made, the amount of money that they spent, and they are now the highest payroll team in baseball, and they're paying $100 million in luxury tax. They're willing to spend the dollar. They've got a really good club. They haven't gelled yet either. Philadelphia has not played very well, and they were in the World Series. I think there's a lot of upside for all those clubs. Houston Astros got off to a slow start, but they just got done taking care of the Braves and the Tampa Bay Rays back to back. So regardless of what it looks like right now, I think Houston is going to be in that mix. But I think the Dodgers are going to have a tough line. I really do. And I wish them luck. I hope they do better than possibly what I'm thinking. I'm always a Dodger, but I think this is one year where you might not be able to live up to the expectations. It's a month into the season. It's still early, but I'm right now. I've got the Padres to win the West.
Respect. I appreciate your honesty, and you are the expert here. We're just the fans. Okay, thank you so much. Is it too early to start drinking one? No, after he just said that?
No, look, I'm not saying the man is right, because he just literally said everything that I told you guys at the beginning of the season, but he shoots from the hip. Ron, once again, I want to thank you for coming on. We really appreciate your honesty about everything. I think that's one of the things that maybe is missing in the game. And I don't know, maybe that's what it was like back in your playing days. It felt like players just really came out and said what they really were feeling, and there wasn't these rehearsed answers. So this has been a very enjoyable time, and I wish you much success with the podcast and the book.
Well, my friends have told me the candor is always one of my best suits. I'm not gonna beat around the bush on it, but I want to thank you, Juan and Alicia, for having me on. Wish you guys great success with your podcast. Thanks again for having me on, and go Dodgers.
There you have it. Ron Cey, everybody. Thank you.
Go in power.
And once again, a big thank you to Dodger legend Ron Cey. That was not how I was expecting that interview to go, Alicia. I really thought we were going to spend a little more time on his actual career. And actually, I wanted to hear his thoughts on Manny Mota getting honored and Valenzuela getting his jersey retired. But I think there might have been a soft spot. And in the interest of full disclosure, I was not aware that this was the 50th anniversary of the infield.
Same.
And also, I was not aware that the Dodgers have nothing planned. And that, to me, that seems like a huge oversight. Like, we've had this conversation many a times, Alicia, how we feel the Dodgers exploit their past players. I mean, the number of times that they have Valenzuela bobbleheads. I mean, shit, they've even had like infield bobbleheads. For them to not acknowledge that it's the 50th anniversary of this infield, and everything that Ron Cey said, he's right. You can't argue. No other team has done this. And for them not to acknowledge it, I mean, he sounded like he was upset. And look, as much as I have people that come on the show, I don't want to upset people. I know you guys all think I'm the Prince of Darkness, but I want people to come on the show and have a good time. So I don't want to upset any of our guests. Am I wrong, Alicia? Did he come off as upset about this?
Yes, upset would be a word. We could also say very passionate. Ron, you can feel through his very, very serious control. I feel like Ron Cey is a serious guy, right? I mean, that's why he had the nickname Mr. Personality. Like, I appreciated his gruffness and his candor. And it's a great balance, speaking of those four infielders, right? You had to have a guy that was, and Hello, MVP 1981 alone, just wow. So yes, I could see why, from his perspective, this anniversary is super important, and it is something he is passionate about. I'll use that word. He is very passionate about this, and I am surprised, like you, that the Dodgers are not acknowledging it. I mean, they've acknowledged lesser. And don't get me wrong, as a Dodger fan, it's all good, right? We love to party, especially hello, or Latinos, any excuse to party. Yes, bring it. But I did mention that this is so important, especially to those generational Dodgers. I was raised on that infield. You know, I was a little girl, but I even knew as a little girl how important that infield was. And, you know, not to mention my mom and my aunties had crushes on one or the other. And Steve Garvey had a crush on my mom, but that's another story. Oh, here's another story. My dad used to be mistaken for Davy Lopes all the time. Like he'd get stopped at the Dodger game all the time. It was like kind of funny, like a running joke. Not recently, you know, got the white hair now, but so yeah, so there's a lot of history there. I digress.
Alicia, I got to ask you this. How does this happen? How do the Dodgers not, and you know, maybe a good person to have on the show is Mark Langell, because Mark Langell, I mean, he's a historian. Yeah. He must have known the importance. I mean, Ron Cey said that Jack DeLance has been in talks with the Dodgers about this, and they haven't been getting any correspondence. So are we supposed to take that as the Dodgers are just basically, and if that's the case, I understand why Ron is passionate about this. A lack of response or not a sense of urgency, doesn't that kind of say this is not important? It doesn't matter.
Right. And that blows my mind, because like I brought up before, he mentioned Jack was in talks. Had anybody from Ron Cey's team reached out to the Dodgers? And he said, we don't have to. But then later in the conversation mentioned someone did. And yeah. Because I'm thinking, you know, I like to keep it positive, and I'm simple, maybe too naive, whatever you want to call it. I'm thinking maybe someone there doesn't know. Maybe someone needs to tell them, right? We're not mind readers. But then when he brought up Jack DeLance reaching out to the Dodgers, yeah, doesn't make sense. Does not make sense. So,
Babyface, we got another cause, right? I mean, after all, we are the ones that got Fernando's jersey retired. I mean, right. you are the one who ran McBankrupt out of town. Are we going to take up this cause to recognize the infield?
We need a shirt.
So I was just looking up, like, you know how the Dodgers have the legends of Dodger baseball, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess the inaugural class was Steve Garvey and Valenzuela. Then they've added Jaime Jarrín, and they're adding Manny Mota, right? They had Maury Wills, but only Garvey is in there from the infield. You would think that Cey would be in there, Russell would be in there, Lopes, right? You would think the infield would be in that Legends of Dodger baseball as well, right?
Well, wasn't it in the inaugural class? Wasn't it Newcomb, Garvey, and Valenzuela? Wasn't it 3? I think they put in 3 every year.
Yeah, Newcomb, Garvey, and Valenzuela in the inaugural class.
And then this year, Hershiser, Mota, and then who's the third one going in this year?
This year, I think so far it's just been Mota and Hershiser.
So it's Mota and Hershiser. Yeah, that does. I think eventually Russell and Lopes and Cey will get in, because it's just like, how many Dodgers are you going to put in there? But I mean, this just seems like a huge oversight on an organization who prides itself on history, right, Alicia? I mean, how many times do we go to Dodger Stadium and they play the videos of Dodger greats, and you know, it's a fraternity. Once a Dodger, always a Dodger. This just seems really odd.
Ron Cey just said that, I'm a Dodger. And then he proceeded to talk about how the Dodgers aren't going to win the pennant, but it's okay. Yes. And again, that's what baseball is, isn't it? That's what makes baseball so romantic and so heartbreaking and so thrilling, is the history, is the tradition. And those 4 infielders, they are like our fearsome foursome, you know? I mean, tell me another 4. You know what I mean? And then that doesn't even exist anymore, just like Mr. Say mentioned. This is just an era that will never be duplicated. And what did he say? The second place for some is 4 years.
Yeah.
We're talking about 10 years domination. Our 4 infielders, our Dodgers. So yeah, we gotta find out.
I mean,
This-
you can't
Some strongly worded emails.
you can't even do it now because you have
Oh, I know.
you have a guy after 6 years, they're probably gone in free agency, right? So like, how are you how are you gonna keep them?
Ahead of that, they don't have set positions. It's a revolving analytical merry-go-round of players.
That's an excellent point, Alicia. It is an excellent, because Bellinger was a first baseman, and then he got moved into the outfield. So just think about that. Remember when we had Corey Seager and then we had Cody Bellinger, that they were part of that minor league class? That's only 2. We are talking about 4 infielders, and I never thought about it this way, but I thought it was hilarious when Ron said we single-handedly destroyed the Dodgers farm system, because he's right. They all came up at the. Could you imagine losing your whole infield all at the same time, and now you're blocking the rest of the minor leaguers for however long they're there? So I that was my initial response, Alicia, I was just like, wait a minute, they have to not know. But then at the same time, I'm like, how do they not know this?
Well,
How do they not know this?
He said he put it in the calendar when he worked there. It's in the calendar. This is the anniversary of the infield, so it's in the calendar when whoever's like checking their calendar daily, like, oh, this is coming up, so it's there.
This is just something that I do feel bad for them, because look, I many times on this show I've always said it's all about Valenzuela. Valenzuela is the reason why I'm a Dodger fan. But we have a lot of listeners here. I mean, we got very positive reaction to our Joe Ferguson episode. One of our listeners was like, "Hey, why don't you guys have more players from the '70s on?" For a lot of Dodger fans, and like Alicia's dad probably will relate to this too, this infield was huge to them, and that's why it was so important for us for Valenzuela's number to get retired, because now it's a constant reminder. When the young kids come into Dodger Stadium, they're going to see Valenzuela. Now you get to tell them the legend, the myth about Valenzuela. For them to miss an opportunity like this to honor the infield, because look, we were talking about that. I honestly really thought that we would see a statue of the infield before we see a statue of Valenzuela.
Yeah.
But for them to just not even, like, this would be the perfect time it's the 50th anniversary. And for them to, if what Ron Say is saying is true, that just, it sucks. I mean, how would you feel? I mean, if you're at work and you're never, a lot of people say, I don't care. Like, you get hey, it's your anniversary with the company, and they don't even acknowledge that. I mean, doesn't it make you feel like you're not appreciated? Go ahead, Alicia.
I'm gonna just add to that. It's also, if it's your company that you work for, right? If that company, you helped build it to what it is today, that makes it more special. I mean, didn't Ron say something to that effect, right? This infield helped build Dodger Stadium to what it is today. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what I got from one of his statements. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Those 4 World Series that these infielders were part of or dominated, you can't, you see people excited about getting the World Series rings and stuff. That's why these guys are why we get excited about getting those 81 rings. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah, I'm old enough to see. There was a time I saw this lady. She had a clear bag, and she had like all these World Series rings. So I totally get what you're saying about like how people really love those World Series rings.
Little Bish. Oh my God. Greedy little Bish. Rude.
But you know what? I really I wanted to spend like more time, because this was a dude that got traded. he said it there, like that 1981 World Series was kind of the end. It was the last time they all. And we were just recently going through it, seeing how Bellinger kicked the Dodgers' ass, this year. We're going to see Justin Turner later on this year and the Red Sox, seeing guys who we have always identified as Dodgers and them leaving. I would have loved to have had the opportunity to ask them, like, how did it feel when they traded you to Chicago? That it was just like the end. And I'm sure if we ever get Steve Garvey on, I'm sure Garvey thought he was going to play his whole career as a Dodger. I don't think Garvey saw himself finishing his career as a Padre. Go ahead, babyface.
Real quick, I got good news for you. When the Fernando Valenzuela weekend is going on, one of the nights is giving away 1981 World Series ring. So
yeah, it's Sunday. It's the Sunday game. Huh. Well, yeah, because I've been with, I'm telling you, I'm old enough to remember when we're giving out the mystery ring and I saw a lady with a clear bag walking around with a full bag. People went nuts for those rings. I have never seen that many people that early to the stadium because they wanted to make sure they got a ring. So the Dodgers are, and this is why, again, I'm just really baffled by this. The Dodgers are not stupid. When they do these promotions, they know what sells. It's the reason why they do the same type of bobbleheads and all that stuff. So for them to like really whiff on the 50th anniversary of the infield, something that is so closely identified to the Dodgers, because like Alicia said, there's no other team that can say, hey, we had a whole infield play together for almost a decade.
And dominate. Well, I enjoyed it. I did not know what to expect because, again, Ron is so serious. And I wanted to bring up his Wikipedia. Did you guys get a chance to glance at it? He was known as the Penguin. And I thought, I was a little girl, I thought it had something to do with Batman. I never knew that it was a college nickname. Also, Mr. Personality was not a flattering, and they called him grumpy and all these things. So I was a little nervous, but I'm glad this Cantor is like welcome, right? In this era of, where lying is just, par for the course. I was refreshing to have an old school guy. Doesn't mean we always have to agree, right? But even what he said about the Dodgers, are we going to get into that, or do we have enough time?
I loved your reaction to his answer about the Dodgers this year. Alicia's just like, okay, all right, sure. You're a Dodgers in. You just came and crapped on the Dodgers team. All right, thanks, man.
Turning my cap around, I was like, well, go Kings, go.
Exactly. Well, the season is over now here. We're not even... The Mr. Personality thing, I did want to talk to him about that too, because I don't know if this breaking news, but I guess, we had talked about, we had to find a nickname for James Outman. It looks like James Outman has a nickname. Have you guys heard what they're throwing around, what they're calling him? Mm-mm. They're calling him Tarzan. So I wanted to see where that came from. Like, is it because of the hair? Who gave him the Tarzan nickname? Because there's those people, and have you ever run into any of those people, Alicia, who like to give themselves nicknames? And it's just like, no, it doesn't work that way, bro. It doesn't work that way.
I think it was Vargas.
It was Vargas who gave him the Tarzan nickname?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was curious to see who gave him the Mr. Personality nickname. And, sometimes you have nicknames that you don't like, but hey, dude, if someone baptizes you and it fits, I'm sorry, you're stuck with it.
I just thought of something. See, my ADHD brain. It is about the Batman. I wasn't totally incorrect, Penguin, because of how he ran, right?
Yeah, but it was more the physical Penguin, not the actual character in Batman. But I love that you're trying.
That's why I tweeted a penguin. Or I sent you guys a penguin yesterday.
Yes, but Alicia is clearly playing her card. She's a Batman fan, and she's making it about Batman, which I have no problem with. I love Batman.
Wait a minute. No. Batman's okay. He's not my favorite.
And how about that Ron say did not poo-poo wrestling, huh? He was a man who admitted what it is. And I love that about him. He was not sitting here like dismissing, like those people are athletes, but they're entertainers. And I find it very interesting that how sports has evolved from when he was playing to now, where I feel now players are very aware that they are entertainers. And that aspect of playing is important.
Well, I'm sure Tommy Lasorda talked to him about WrestleMania 2, because remember Tommy Lasorda was the MC
Yes.
at WrestleMania 2, and I'm sure he had stories about that back in the day with him.
Too bad Tommy's not alive.
That
Go ahead, Ali.
Could it also be that there were just less channels, like he mentioned, and wrestling, whether you watched it or not, it was very much part of pop culture? No disrespect, but I'm just saying, I wanted to bring up how he mentioned the ladies wearing skimpy things. And I'm like, but they fight now as well. Like, they're not just the ringside girls. And don't get me wrong, that's a lot of effort to look like that, to be. Not anyone could do it, not everyone, I should say.
If we have him back on, Alicia, you have to ask him that question. I would have loved to have seen, because you're right. He was talking about, the skimpy ladies and all that. I would have loved to have seen his answer when you tell him, yeah, but they also fight now and they kick people fucking ass.
They wrestle, and some of them are more popular than the men. So
yeah,
it's all good. Again, different generation. He's 75. I'm so happy for him that he's trying out new things. He talks about learning and learning the podcast world. And I just feel like he's loosened up, and I hope he's having a good time. And so I'm definitely going to check out his podcast. I had a good time, and we got to get into the psyches of the Dodgers. I mean, because I'm trying to think, the suits up there at Dodgers Stadium, there are a lot of them that are old enough to know that this is important. I'm trying to give I always try to see both sides, and I cannot see the argument not to at least acknowledge it.
You know what I was thinking, but then I talked myself out of it in my own head. Like, I mean, it's 50 years, right? Like, how far back do you go recognize, like, how much of your fan base is going to remember that? I know there's still a lot of Dodger fans that will remember that, but then I'm thinking 50 years, right? That doesn't happen that often, right? So, like, you got to acknowledge that, right, too? But I'm trying to see, like, well, maybe it's something they think most of their fans maybe won't care about. I mean, I don't know.
I think if that's true, I think that's a big misjudgment on there, because that's the whole point of telling these stories, is so people don't forget. Like, would you, like, if they didn't celebrate the 40th anniversary of Fernando Mania, wouldn't you be pissed? Wouldn't you be like, hey, what the fuck? I mean, this is an important part of Dodger history, and you guys aren't acknowledging it.
And that's a good point, though. They did acknowledge 40, right? And 40 is like, okay, 40 is it's a milestone in itself, but it's not 50, right? Like,
exactly.
It's like 25, 50, right? 75, 100, right? So yeah, that makes sense.
I just I felt bad for him, because obviously it means a lot, and it just I really, and now if they do end up doing anything, it's gonna feel weird to me. It's gonna feel like it's reactionary. It's like, oh, we're getting shit in the media, because sooner or later somebody from the LA Times, some sports writer, is going to write an article about this, about it's the 50th anniversary of the infield, and the Dodgers didn't do anything to recognize it.
You mean after they listen to our podcast?
And we won't get credit, because you know what? You weren't on it, Alicia, but Eric Sherman, we were talking about the Fernando book. Eric Sherman's taking credit for retiring the number. So I didn't want to be rude to him, and I'd be like, all right, Eric, I'm going to let you have that moment, because everyone else and their mother is taking credit for this. But I just want to let you know, we've had a campaign to have his number retired for a long time.
I wonder who Fernando says. Yeah, I wonder who Fernando says. That's what we got to ask Fernando.
That's Fernando.
Fernando believes, and I believe he believes it is us. It is, so that's what I care about.
Yeah. So I'm very curious. Like I said, I was like you, Alicia. I was very surprised by the interview. I enjoyed it. Hopefully we can have him back on when he is promoting his book, because I do want to hear covered though. I want to hear those stories. I want to hear the answers to, hey, women fight now too, Ron. They're not just walking around in bathing suits. So
They fight in bathing suits now. I wish. Come on, put me in, coach. My sister and I talk about that all the time because we used to get in trouble for fighting all the time. And I thought, man, what an era. Like, if we had known that that was a career, we could be paid. We could have toured, it'd still be in shape. Like, awesome.
you guys would have been the Bella Twins before the Bella Twins. You guys really, the Delvaya sisters missed their calling. So, all right, kids, any last words before we end the show?
Just thank you to Ronce once again. And that is a great cover to his book. I can't wait for our listeners to check it out. I really like that.
Babyface, last word.
Yeah, I have a feeling he has some good takes on all the new rules and stuff. We need to ask him about all that stuff.
Yes. Absolutely. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. For those of you who are just stumbling upon us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the button, watch the videos, subscribe, watch all our other videos. If you want to listen to us in the car or while you're doing yard work, subscribe to the podcast. You can find us wherever you find your favorite podcast. And help spread the word. Tell your friends, if you disagree with us, or if you want to find out, let people know Alicia Del Valle could have been a wrestler. Point them to this episode. So they can hear the truth. Yo ha sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez, de parte de mis colegas Alicia Del Valle and Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts.